What would you do if your family planned a dream wedding and quietly decided you weren't invited while using your money to pay for it? Stay with me, because this story doesn't go where you expect. The table was set for 20. It was one of those carefully arranged family dinners where everything looked perfect: polished cutlery, folded napkins, wine glasses catching the light just right. I had brought the wine myself. Not that anyone noticed. Still, details matter to me. I'd driven 40 minutes to my parents' house in Deerfield, balancing a case of Cointreau in the backseat, along with a dish of roasted vegetables for my nephew and a casserole my mother had specifically asked for. When I stepped into the house, it smelled exactly the way it always did at Easter: garlic, fresh bread, and that faint metallic warmth from old radiators humming beneath the walls. It was familiar. Comforting, even. Cousins drifted from room to room. Laughter echoed in bursts. My father stood at the head of the table, wearing that one colorful shirt he reserved for occasions he deemed important. My mother moved through the kitchen with a certain brightness in her eyes, the kind that meant she'd been holding onto something all day, waiting for the right moment to reveal it. I should have recognized that look. Dinner began like it always did: noise, overlapping conversations, clinking silverware. But just before the second course, my mother stood. She tapped her glass gently with a butter knife. The room quieted, and then she announced it. Flights, hotel, everything fully planned. The entire family was going to Nice in July for Celeste's wedding. The reaction was immediate. Excitement burst across the table. My aunt clasped her hands together like she'd just received incredible news. My uncle laughed, already making a joke about French wine. Someone started asking about beaches, someone else about dresses. And Celeste, 3 seats away from me, lifted her chin slightly, the way she always did when attention settled on her. She looked radiant, completely at ease in that spotlight, as if she had always known it would belong to her. Because, in many ways, it always had. My mother sat back down, satisfied, like she had personally arranged the Mediterranean itself. I waited. Not long, just enough for the initial wave of excitement to settle. Then I asked a simple question. "What weekend is the ceremony?" My mother glanced at me, not harshly, not even coldly, just dismissively. "Oh, sweetheart," she said lightly, almost kindly, "you won't be coming. Marcus needs someone at home." She said it the way you explain something obvious to a child, and then, just like that, she turned away. The conversation resumed, as if nothing had happened. I picked up my fork and continued eating. Because sometimes, the moment you realize something isn't the moment you react to it. Sometimes, it takes a second, or 10, or years. To understand why that sentence landed the way it did, you have to understand something about my family. Not what we said out loud, but what we quietly built everything around. For nearly a decade, everything revolved around Celeste. She was the one our parents believed in. The one they invested in, financially, emotionally, endlessly. At 24, she moved to Charleston for culinary school. Then she pivoted to event design, then again to something she called experiential hospitality consulting. Each new direction came with support: tuition paid, deposits covered, a car when hers broke down, even a short-term loan when one of her ventures stalled. None of this was ever discussed openly. It just happened. Because Celeste needed it to happen, I had a different role. I was the reliable one, the steady one, the one who answered phone calls at inconvenient hours, the one with a job that wasn't glamorous, but was useful. Healthcare contract administration. Not exciting enough for dinner conversations, but practical enough that everyone depended on it when things got complicated. And when my parents struggled, really struggled, I didn't pivot. I built. 7 years ago, after my father's consulting firm lost its biggest client, I created something I thought would solve a long-term problem. A dedicated savings and investment account. I contributed to it regularly, carefully, deliberately, and then I gave my parents authorized access, so they wouldn't have to ask me every time something went wrong. It wasn't emotional, it was structural. That's how I think about things. The account helped. It paid for a roof replacement, covered a medical bill insurance didn't fully handle, even funded tutoring for a younger cousin. Over time, though, something shifted. Quietly. Gradually, the account stopped being something I created and started being something the family had. Like inherited furniture. like it had always existed, like it belonged to everyone. Vacations came out of it. Expenses were charged to it. Even Celeste's wedding venue deposit, the one in Nice, came from it, and no one questioned it. Because no one had to. What no one ever revisited was ownership, because it had never mattered, until it did. Back at the table, surrounded by laughter and plans and excitement I wasn't part of, I sat quietly, listening, waiting. Celeste was describing the venue now, some restored estate overlooking rolling hills. My father nodded along, satisfied. My mother refilled her glass. Everything was moving forward, without me. So I waited for a pause, just a small one. And then I asked, casually, "Does anyone know what the total budget for the trip is?" My father answered. It was a large number. I nodded slowly. "And that's coming from the investment account?" "It's already handled," my mother replied quickly, her tone closing the subject. That was my answer. I reached into my pocket, unlocked my phone, opened my banking app. "I just want to make sure everything's clear," I said calmly. "There's something about that account you should probably understand." I looked at my father. "It's in my name," he frowned. "You have authorized access," I continued. "But that access can be changed." There was a shift in the air now, subtle but real. "Renata," he said carefully, "what are you doing?" I didn't answer. I tapped the screen twice. If you've ever wondered how fast something can change, how quickly years of unspoken assumptions can collapse, this is where it happens. And trust me, what came next? No one at that table was ready for it. I tapped the screen twice. The change processed in less than 10 seconds. I placed my phone face down on the table. For a moment, nothing happened. Then my mother's phone buzzed. A second later, my father's did too. The sound was small. Ordinary, but in that moment it carried weight. Celeste looked between them, confused. "What's going on?" My mother picked up her phone first. Her eyes scanned the screen, and then she went completely still. Not dramatic, not loud. Just frozen. My father checked his next. His expression shifted, not into anger, not yet, but into something closer to disorientation. Like the ground beneath him had moved slightly and he wasn't sure why. "That's a banking alert," I said calmly. "Authorized access has been removed." Celeste blinked. "What does that mean?" "It means," I replied, "the account paying for the flights, the hotel, and the venue deposit is no longer accessible to anyone but me." Silence followed. Not the kind from earlier, the awkward, polite kind. This one had weight. It pressed down on the room. Celeste slowly set her glass down. "You need to fix that, right now." "I don't," I said. My father pushed his chair back slightly, halfway standing. "This is not the time." "I know," I answered. "You made that clear earlier." The words hung there, unavoidable. "I'm not part of this trip," I continued, my voice even. "I understand that now." I looked at my mother, then at Celeste, then back at my father. "I'm just making sure the finances reflect the guest list." No one spoke. There wasn't anything left to say. I stood up, carefully folded my napkin and placed it beside my plate, the way my mother had taught me when I was 7. It felt almost automatic, habit outliving meaning. I reached for my jacket. Behind me, Celeste started speaking again, her voice sharper now, climbing in pitch. My father said something over her. My mother's chair scraped against the floor, but I was already walking away. By the time I reached the door, their voices had blurred into noise, like a room you've already left, even if you're still technically inside it. Outside, the air was cool. Quiet. The kind of quiet that doesn't ask anything from you. I sat in my car for a moment, hands resting on the steering wheel. Not thinking much, not replaying anything, just sitting. Then I started the engine, and drove home. The calls began the next morning, and they didn't stop. Not for days, not for weeks. Celeste left voicemails first. Long ones, emotional ones. They swung wildly between anger and something that almost sounded like hurt, but never quite reached accountability. My mother followed with messages about family, about forgiveness, about how pride can quietly destroy relationships if you let it. My father took a different approach. Practical, measured. He talked about logistics, non-refundable deposits, financial consequences, things already set in motion. But none of them, not once, acknowledged what had actually happened at that table. Not the words, not the decision, not the assumption. Without the account, the wedding in Nice unraveled quickly. The venue was canceled, the deposit forfeited, The hotel block was released. Flights were never booked. What had once sounded like a dream dissolved into something far smaller, far closer. Months later, Celeste got married in a banquet hall in town. About 30 people attended. I wasn't one of them. I sent a card. And for the first time in 7 years, I stopped. No more transfers, no more quiet contributions, no more stepping in before anyone had to ask. I expected chaos. Some kind of fallout. Emergencies piling up. Calls I'd have to answer. But it didn't happen. Nothing collapsed. Nothing urgent appeared. The crises that had always seemed inevitable simply didn't arrive. It was strange at first. Then, slowly, it started to make sense. Those emergencies had depended on something: access, availability, an open door. And once that door closed, the pattern ended. Just like that. My life became quieter. Simpler, mine. I made decisions about money with only 2 people in mind, myself and my son. I opened a new account. This time, there was only one authorized user. Me. At some point, I started seeing a therapist. Not because something was wrong, but because something had shifted and I wanted to understand it. She didn't use dramatic language, no labels, no easy conclusions. Mostly, she asked questions and waited. One afternoon, she asked me something that stayed with me. "Do you think," she said gently, "that you were trying to purchase belonging?" I paused, considered it. "I don't know," I said honestly. "But I think maybe I was trying to prove I deserved it." She nodded, like that distinction mattered. I'm still not entirely sure if it does. People who hear this story tend to land in one of 2 places. Some think I overreacted, that it was just a careless comment. A single moment at a holiday dinner that didn't need to become something bigger. Maybe they're right, or maybe they're only seeing the moment and not everything that led up to it. Because that sentence at the table, it wasn't the wound, it was the realization. The moment everything quietly aligned into something undeniable. I had been part of that family, but I had never really been included. I had been useful, reliable, necessary, but not chosen. For a long time, I was the invisible structure holding everything up. The part no one noticed. Until it was gone, I don't think about nice anymore. Not the venue, not the wedding that never happened. I think about the drive home that night, the empty highway stretching ahead, the way I turned off the radio halfway through because the silence felt earned. Not lonely, not heavy, just quiet in a way that finally belonged to me. And sometimes I wonder, have you ever been the person everyone depends on, right up until the moment you're no longer convenient? And if you have, did you keep showing up? Or did you finally decide it was enough?